So a very warm welcome to you all, and thank you for coming along to this community project information session for 2025. I'm not quite sure how I'm talking about 2025 right now, but anyway, we are, and we're planning into next year, and that's both terrifying and exciting. To begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the Wadawurrung country, as probably many of you are today. And prior to coming onto this call, I was just feeling so grateful that I get to do the work that I do on Wadawurrung country, and that, you know, I might get the potential to work with those of you who are on this call, who are also, many of you are also working on Wadawurrung country. So aren't we lucky to be here? So with that, I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people here today. I thought it would be a lovely opportunity for us each just quickly to do some introductions around the room. Just potentially, if you could just share your name, the organisation you're from and your role, and then if you could just share the question or questions you're hoping to have answered today in this session, that would be great. And when we come to you, Pat and Jackie were project champions this year. And Pat and Jackie, I'll just get you to give a very quick, brief spiel, like a minute or so, on the project that you hosted this year. That sound all good?
Sounds great.
So perhaps I might just start at the top of my screen. So Hannah, you were first in, so you're like right next to me.
Yeah.
I'll start with you.
No, that's great. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm from the Give Where You Live Foundation. I work as design, evaluation, and learning lead. And yeah, have been able to, you know, Jackie was really championing this project that we had this year, but I was able to be involved a little bit and found it amazing. So yeah. And my questions for today would be, understanding a little bit better what types of projects you would be looking for, or how we would have to develop a project proposal if we wanted to, you know, apply for one again.
Yeah.
To get some ideas started.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll cover both of those things in this call. So great. Thank you, Hannah. What about Emma?
Hi there, I'm Emma. I'm from Anamkara, so I'm sitting next to Claire. So I don't know if it's got a bit of background for you. I'm the new people and culture business partner here, and I'm just looking just to find a little bit more information about what this is really. It's very new for me. So working with Claire just to see what we can look at in this space.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Emma. With that, what about we go across to you, Claire, also sitting next to Emma?
Yeah, so I'm from Anamkara House as well. So we have been involved, I believe, in a project a few years ago. So yeah, like Emma said, just learning more about what projects you're looking for and whether there's future opportunities for us as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Claire. Melinda, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. I don't know what's going on with my camera. I can't seem to change it and make it work. So apologies. I am the Community Engagement and Development Coordinator at Hope Bereavement Care. And I'm also really on to just find out a little bit more about the program and how it might apply to the work that we do at Hope.
Okay, great. Definitely can do that. Now, what about over to you, Caitlin?
Hello all, I am Caitlin from Barwon Sports Academy. I only found out about this at about 9:30 this morning from Cam, I don't know a lot, so I'm just interested to learn more with something that I think Cam's interested in pursuing, so it means that I need to be all over it.
Yeah, great, that's good. Yeah, good you're here. Yeah, Cam had registered, and glad that you're here, so you'll be able to learn all the things. Cam, I think, was involved with the Geelong Connected Communities Project, wasn't he, Pat, this year?
Correct.
Yeah.
He's a director, yeah.
Yeah, so he knows a bit about how they work, which is great. Well, great to have you, Caitlin. What about over to you, Michelle? Oh, Michelle. Yes, Michelle.
Sorry. So I'm Michelle. I'm the exec manager for corporate services out of Wadawurrung here. So yeah, just on board to learn about how we can take advantage and benefit from the program and embed it with some of our workers here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. Over to you, Bernie.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us. Bernie Jenner, Chair of Hope Bereavement Care, and also Director at Gateway Support Services. So I'd be just interested in what Leaders for Geelong can offer those two organisations. Hope Bereavement, we've got lots of needs for our ongoing service that we're providing within our program, and Gateways is getting broader and broader, and many options there.
Okay, that's great. All right, thank you, Bernie. I can see you're representing two organisations there, so you've got a couple of eyes on different organisations. Thank you. And Rachel, I think you're lucky last. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Rachel. I'm the CEO of Ocean Mind, and we're just, I guess I've just recently found out all about the projects that you guys are doing, and would love to just learn more and see whether there's any way that we're able to, be involved in that. I've done leadership programs in Melbourne before, and I know how exciting it is to get those that are doing the leadership programs into an organisation to be able to help out and do projects. So just really interested in what that could look like.
Okay, that's great. And yes, very enthusiastic, very excited group of leaders, which I'm sure Pat and Jackie will refer to as we go through the call today. I will just go across to Pat and Jackie and just get you to do a quick intro and share a little bit about the project that you did with the Leaders for Geelong group this year. Hi, Pat.
Yeah, okay. So Pat Manane, I'm the executive support for Geelong Connected Communities, and the project that we did was ask the leaders to do a social impact study and produce a report on the work of Geelong Connected Communities over the last 11 years.
Right. Thank you, Pat. And Jackie?
Yeah, g'day. I'm Jackie from the Give Where You Live Foundation. I'm the Partnerships Manager, and we approached the leaders to look at our workplace giving program. It's been in decline for the last 10 years, so we wanted them to kind of look at the reasons why and trying to understand how we can reverse that trend.
And what I'll do as we go through is Pat and Jackie are going to pop back into this conversation. The way we're going to set this up is I'll share a little bit about the Leaders for Geelong program and why we do community projects. I'll then talk about what makes a great project, and we'll get an opportunity to hear from Pat and Jackie again about their experience both in how they set up the project at the beginning, the way that they worked with leaders throughout the 6-month period, and then kind of where are they now. We had our project presentation breakfast last week, which is where the Leaders for Geelong participants get to showcase the projects that they've done in front of an audience of 180 people last week, and so they're only a week on, but they might be able to talk a little bit about where are they now and where do they see the work headed. Before the end, I'll talk about the community project deliverables and timelines, so you've got a good sense of those, and then the application process. And if anytime you've got questions throughout this call, feel free to jump in, and I'll also try and leave some time at the end of our conversation today to ask questions. So the Leaders for Geelong program will be celebrating its 19th year in 2025, so it's been going for a very long time. And in fact, community projects were introduced into the program in 2008, and since then we've done 89 community projects in the Geelong region, which is, I think, something to be really proud of. Each year we do about 5 or 6 community projects, depends on the number of participants. So we kind of get up to 89. It's like a fair mean feat, right, when you're doing 5 or 6 at a time. So the Leaders for Geelong program itself is designed for leaders that have got some experience but are eager to expand their networks and learn from diverse perspectives outside of their own organisation. It's a 12-month program. We start in January, go through to December. And thanks, Bernie, no worries. And we do a combination of things throughout the program to support the participants' learning. The community project really is quite a significant part of the program itself. I'm just going to share a little graphic which just shows the Leaders for Geelong program in its entirety. So just a minute while I share my screen. There we go. So you should be able to see my screen now. This is kind of the key components of the Leaders for Geelong program. But there's a few kind of key objectives behind this program. And the first one is that we've got a really big focus on building really strong connections across the program and with leaders across the Geelong region. And so in the opening retreat, which you'll see top and middle, that's where we give leaders a really good understanding of what's happening in our region, what are the challenges, where are the opportunities, who's doing amazing work in our region. And we try to hear from as many different perspectives as we can across the government, business, not-for-profit, community organisations, try to provide a really good holistic understanding of what's happening and where we're headed. We also focus on trying to help our leaders get a better sense of who they are as leaders and what their leadership strengths are. And we take a real strengths-based approach throughout the whole leadership program. So it's a very supportive learning environment, and it's certainly very focused on how do they develop the skills that they need where they're at in their careers, both for leading in their own organisations, but for also leading in the community. From that, we do a range of things, but we run some foundational leadership skills, knowledge and skills days, which are the building blocks days. We then run some more community-facing days where we get an opportunity to go out to different organisations in our region who are doing really amazing work, and get those organisations get an opportunity to showcase that, but also to share where they see the opportunities and challenges are. And then you can see where the big arrow is. The community project, it's quite a significant part of the program, and it runs for 6 of the 12 months, pretty much from April through till about now. The other thing we do is that we will visit state and federal parliament, so we give our leaders a really good opportunity to see, well, how does change happen in our governance structures? So this is the full Leaders for Geelong program. It's a fairly big program for the leaders that are part of it, but having seen the program for the first time this year, I started at the beginning of the year. It's a great program. The leaders are really connected. They're very enthusiastic. They're very passionate about the Geelong region, and they really want to make a difference. And many of them now, towards the end of the program, are starting to look up and out and go, well, how might I be able to use my leadership skills outside? Yes, within my organisation, but I'm really ready to do something outside of my organisation and support community organisations here, whether that's in a volunteer or board capacity. Just to delve into the community project side of things a little bit more, we do community projects because it gives our participants the opportunity to transform the learning that they're doing into action. Many of them will have done projects in their own organisations, but it's entirely different when you put them in a group of 5 or 6 people representing different organisations and having different skills and strengths, and put them in another organisation that's entirely different from their own and doing work that's probably different from what they do in their day-to-day work. And so we provide lots of learning throughout this program to help them learn the skills they need to be able to do these community projects really well. They also give participants the opportunity to create community connection outside their own organisation. And then they also get an opportunity to drive meaningful change in our region. So we make sure that these community projects need to be able to have an impact beyond the organisation that they're supporting. Now, on the flip side, you're all here representing a range of organisations in our area. They give you the opportunity really to collaborate with a group of passionate leaders who, I don't know, they're just brimming with energy and excitement. You can see Jackie nodding there. You get an opportunity to almost have like a volunteer team in your organisation for 6 months, kind of just with fresh perspectives and ideas and ways of doing things. And then as a result of all of that, you receive sort of some outcomes from a project or a piece of work that's important to your organisation. And that includes a really comprehensive report. They do a presentation, which then gives your organisation good exposure. And there's obviously the potential for ongoing support. Once the Leaders for Geelong participant has worked with your organisation, they get to know who you are, what you care about, the skills that they need, and then they can think about, well, how might I give back to this organisation beyond the Leaders for Geelong program? So they're the kinds of benefits for organisations like you. So I'm going to answer the question, what makes a great project? And then we'll hear from Pat and Jackie. I'm going to flip my slide because I think this is probably one of the more important parts of this presentation. So here on the slide, I've got 5 dot points, which kind of is just a little bit of an overview about what makes a great project. This is not exhaustive, and there might be other things here that make a great project, but I just haven't named them. So the types of projects that are good are ones that really involve better understanding problems that exist, or potentially even researching opportunities. So Jackie talked before about the workplace giving program and that had been declining over the 10 years. And so that particular project was looking at, well, why has that decline happened for Give Where You Live? What's happening with workplace giving, both in our region and nationally and globally? And how, through our understanding of those trends, do we get a sense of what's happening here? And once we've got that understanding, well, what do we do about it? And what do we know are some of the factors that then drive workplace giving that are within Give Where You Live's control to be able to do something about? So that first dot point is very much connected to the project that Jackie and the Give Where You Live team put forward this year. The second dot point really is about how do you actively involve stakeholders across the community to understand their perspectives and ideas. The Geelong Connected Communities Project did this quite well, where the group interviewed some grant recipients to really understand what the projects were that they received funding for, and then what was the impact of those projects. That was only one part of their analysis. We had another project with the Lazarus Community Centre in Geelong, and the project there talked to lots of different providers providing support to people who are homeless, and through those conversations they got a really good sense of how is homelessness being looked at in the Geelong region, what service providers are there, how well are they connected, and where is the work to be done. So that was a project, a couple, 2 or 3, actually nearly all of our projects probably had dot point 2 as part of them. And the leaders really appreciate an opportunity to, plan who are the stakeholders we need to talk to, what is the topic of our conversation, what are the kinds of questions we need to ask, and then how do we pull those insights into some kind of comprehensive report. The third dot point is just some examples of things that they can potentially help with, like, if you've got an organisation with not too much complexity, they could potentially do an organisation review. They can potentially step into the sort of future strategic long-term planning space. The Lazarus project actually did an operating model design for an in-house nursing service. So that was a very specific service that Lazarus were looking at implementing. So the project was very much focused on, well, how do you need to operationalise that and implement it? And how does the organisation have to shift to enable that service to thrive in that organisation? The fourth dot point, designing new or improving existing products and services. We did a project with Active Geelong, and that involved the creation of an online resource hub and assessment tool. You can see that now if you go to the Active Geelong website, but they pulled together a range of different resources related to support organisations help their workforce be more active based on the data that exists that shows that people are nowhere near as active as they could be, and workplaces are a key place to try and improve physical activity. And then the last one, which is social impact reporting. Pat referred to this already in his introduction, but that project was great because it got people really to understand, well, what even is social impact reporting? What are the types of frameworks that we use? What data exists at Geelong Connected Communities? How do we use that data? And obviously they did some interviews. So you can see that the project examples that I've provided so far, they were a combination of these things. So, some of them were 2 or 3 of them, others might have just been the one, but these are the types of things that contribute to a great project. I'll take a little pause and just see whether there's any questions emerging. All right, well, I might go across to you, Jackie. I'll start with Jackie. And the reason you still need to head off at 12:30, Jackie.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. You're right.
You're good.
All
right, let's start with you, and then we'll go across to Pat. So, Jackie, I'm wondering if you could share with the group what made you decide to do a Leaders for Geelong project this year, and how did you decide on the project you put forward?
So we had a staff member at Gilwee participate in the project back in 2023, and Christy went along to the lunch, for the presentation lunch. It was a lunch last year, and was blown away by the quality of the presentations and the reports, and came back and said we absolutely have to be part of that. And so we then went about contacting Michael, and we got our project brief in. And how we decided on the project was workplace giving has obviously been a big focus of ours in terms of how do we stop this, stop the decline, and it's also one of our key organisational goals. So we thought that would be the great one to kind of offer up. So that's why we did that.
Great, thank you. And it's funny, isn't it? When you see you see the project presentation, you see them at the end, it makes you think, oh, that's really exciting. Like, look at what the work they've been able to do and what it's enabled for the organisation. So sort of good once you see the back end of it.
Totally.
Totally. So what's it been like working with the Leaders for Geelong project team this year?
Oh, well, we loved it. We felt really privileged to be able to work with the 5 leaders. They all came from a really broad background. So we had a lawyer, a finance person, a venue manager from Deakin, someone from Parks and the Barwon Coastal Management Group, and an advisor for a politician. So a really broad range of backgrounds. But over the 6 months, we got to really know them. We got to unpack their leadership journey, and we really worked alongside them. And I think that was really important. But we had a truly wonderful experience. Can't speak highly enough of the program.
Yeah, fantastic. And Jackie, how did you support the project team throughout the 6 months?
Yeah, so I was the project champion. So we actually set up weekly Teams meetings. So we had a big planning session at the start to really unpack, and that was their opportunity. They had to do a project scope, so they asked us lots of questions to kind of really unpack the issues. And then they went away and obviously did all the work, but we would have check-ins every week. And that was my opportunity to help them if they needed further information or give them some insights. It was their opportunity to test some ideas. So that's how we went about it.
Yeah, that's great. And did you find that like a big time commitment for you, Jackie, or no?
No, I think the more you invest in it, the more you get from it. And I think that was such a pleasure to be around in, and their enthusiasm's, kind of like addictive almost, because they've, and they've become almost 5 new ambassadors for the organisation, and they kind of really got involved in all aspects of the organisation. In the end, they attended our events. They got involved in workplace presentations for us. They are workplace givers now. So they were just a joy. So it is a commitment, I'm not going to lie, but I think it's absolutely worth it. And I think it showed in our final product, the more we supported it, the more value we got from it as well.
Yeah. And what was great about your project is one of the 5 organised the workplace giving to be reinstated in their organisation. And Jackie, you were able to support that. And it's a great story of not only have they investigated the problem, but they've also been able to, what's been
take it all in
control
action.
is taken. Yeah, that's right. Make it real. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And then at the breakfast last week, I remember at the start they said, hands up who's involved in workplace giving. Very few people put their hands up, right? But now every single person in that room knows about the workplace giving program, and I thought that was a really great moment to go, look, here's our biggest opportunity.
Absolutely. So we saw that absolutely. When we first got involved, we thought, well, at the very least, we'll be able to get a presentation in front of a group of people talking about workplace giving. That was, but not really then understanding the unbelievable work that this group of 5 people would do for us. And Hannah worked alongside them in helping to do some of that design work. And it was like a proud moment at the breakfast when you see them get up there and actually present. They feel like they're an arm of your organisation. They're as passionate as what you are. They know the product. It was incredible.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it was a great moment. Where are you sitting now, though, with the project? You've obviously got the report. You saw the presentation last week. Where to for you now?
Yeah, so there's 2 elements. So we obviously will table that report at our board meeting, because I think it's really important to give credence to the work that's been done and some of the recommendations and findings. And then we've got our own internal meeting with Hannah and Christy and myself to go, rightio, where to. Let's actually take these findings on board. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. And so, it's like once you end up with a report back, there's sort of still obviously the work to do internally to go now where to, what are we going to put in place? We've obviously got the data. It's told us what we need to do. So now we have to try and make it happen.
Now we're going to do it, which is absolutely fine because we've actually now got evidence to kind of go down a certain way, whereas in the past it's been guesswork.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things we certainly look at as we're going through the reporting and making recommendations phases, always let's consider the capacity of the organisation, what they can do. Many of these people, you know, they've got plenty of experience behind them, but not in your own organisation. So it's also making sure that, you know, whatever recommendations they're making are reasonable and realistic and are possible for your organisation.
Yep, totally.
Which is, I guess, why, Jackie, you're saying the more involved you can be, the better, because you get a better outcome in the end.
Absolutely, totally, yeah. And and it's better for the organisation, and you give, and it's better for the leaders because then they have a great experience knowing that you're investing in them and you take their work serious as well.
Yeah.
And they do an incredible amount of work for us on top of their full-time jobs.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. It is a fairly big commitment for them. They they're still doing their jobs. This is like probably adds, it depends. At the peak of it, it's adding between 6 and 8 hours a week onto their already busy life. So it's like a fair commitment. By the end of the process, they're pretty tired and exhausted, but I think it's like a short, it's a short-term thing that gives, the benefits are huge.
Huge benefits. So if you jump on the Leaders for Geelong website, you'll see the projects and you'll see the quality. And we actually got some great branding tips from the report layout. Like, do you know what I mean? There's lots of other off-the-cuff benefits. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, sorry, I've just realised I was still sharing that one of the things we do is we work with a local graphic designer, and they provide templates, and the groups use those templates to create the reports, which is how they look. They look really good. We used Canva this year, which was new for us, and so the Leaders for Geelong started with a template, and then they created a lot of the page layout. So I mean, even that's like a little thing, but it does make a difference, doesn't it?
Thing. Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
No, that's good. Have you got any advice for those considering a project today, Jackie?
I would highly recommend doing it. Without a doubt, and I think just investing in your time, so like putting aside that 1 hour a week, knowing that you've got that meeting with them, but it's highly worth it. But highly recommend it. We're definitely looking to do another project. We loved it that much. Yeah,
that's great. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jackie. I'm like,
nice, thank you.
12:29. You're going to be on time.
I know, thank you so pretty good for me because I can talk with a mouthful of concrete. Anyway.
Yeah, you've done really well. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. With that, we will. I'm going to flip over to you, Pat, in just a second. But I cannot believe I've done this again. So Karen McCaddy, I don't know where she'll be on your screen. Karen's here. I didn't get to flick over to you before. Karen, I'm so sorry.
That's totally fine. That's all right. Hi, everyone.
Fine. No, it's not.
Yeah. So, in terms of my role, I'm the coordinator of the Leaders program. So Lauren is the facilitator and I do all the coordination behind the scenes. So if you do put in an application, I'll be the one receiving it and happy to answer any inquiries that you might have after this today.
Thank you, Karen. Now, Pat, let's go across to you. Jackie has shared a bit about the project that they did with the Leaders for Geelong project team this year. What made you decide to do a project with this group, and how did you decide what project? You're muted, I think, Pat.
Right.
Yeah, got you.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I've been aware of the program for quite a number of years. When I was running the Bendigo Bank, I put a couple of my staff through, and with Cam Loftus, who's on the board of Geelong Connected Communities, he'd been through it, and so I was aware of some of the great work that had been done. And when the opportunity presented itself, I said to our board, we really need to do this. And we had been looking for some time to do a social impact study and had talked about maybe getting Deakin to do it. But this seemed a terrific opportunity, so we grabbed it with both hands and very, very pleased that we did.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Pat. And so what was it like working with the Leaders for Geelong project team this year?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It's very much a case of the old adage, you get out of it what you put into it. The further we went along with the team, the more encouraged and enjoyable it was to work with the people on our team, because they're all very experienced in their own individual businesses and had a lot to offer, and provided a sort of an outside view to ourselves. And you know, we've been going for 11 years, and a lot of our directors have been there since day one. So it was important to get some of those outside views. But we also took the view that there's two things here. There's the project and there's the company, or in our case, GCC. And so we took some time to really introduce them to our business. Now, we're not a very big business, but we work in a big market, the philanthropy market. And so we wanted them to understand where we fit in that market and what we do, so that they could distinguish between the other players. And there's some fantastic players in the philanthropy market in Geelong, as everybody knows. So we thought it was important to educate them along those lines, because in asking them to do an impact statement, they then knew the context in which we were trying to ask them to work. And at the end there, they all said they were drinking the GCC Kool-Aid. You know, they knew that much about us, and were so interested in the work we're doing. We did this a number of ways. We actually invited them to 3 board meetings during the course of their. So they actually got to sit across the table and talk to directors and ask directors questions and get a real feel for the business. Now, we're in a small business, we're in the capacity to do that, but I would really recommend to the organisations that are looking at to try and give the participants as much understanding about the businesses that they're with, so that they understand the context of the project in that business. And we really got great value out of that, because we're very different to the other philanthropic groups in Geelong, in as much as that we deal very much in the small grants, and as they rightly pointed out at the breakfast, because we're only doing small amounts of money, we don't go very deep, but we go very broad, because you know we actually work with the entire community rather than say specifically in specific areas. So that they really grasped that. And then they went out and they did an analysis of our whole 830 projects, which Nick from KPMG, who's an auditor, really relished that opportunity. And then they had a look specifically at about 100 grants that we'd done over the last 2 years, and that was a more recent opportunity to talk and look at organisations. And then they actually went and spoke to and interviewed 20 of those organisations, and they sort of came back with an endorsement of yes, you guys are dealing in small not-for-profits, but you know these are the impacts you're having. And they told us a bit about ourselves that we didn't even know. You know, the things that feedback they got from sort of an hour interview with an organisation, that we hadn't done that sort of personal side of things. We were busy doing our business, and so it gave us a bit of confidence around the connection that we had, the partnerships that we'd developed, and how we could use that as an asset to what we're doing. And also it's important, I think, from an operational perspective, to understand that, you know, Lauren, you have timelines for their reporting back, and you know you need to work with them to meet their timelines. So you know we ended up structuring ourselves a little bit around their needs to make sure we actually met all their needs within the timelines that they had to meet back. at the Community for Geelong. So that's important. And in fact, it became part of our year, you know, and if you look at it that way, then that's how you get the most out of it. Look, and we're at the situation now that half of them want to become directors of Geelong Connected Communities. So, you know, they have been drinking the Kool-Aid, that's for sure. And we're going to actually offer a couple of directorships to a couple of them who you know, will generally like to be involved.
Yeah, that's great. Pat.
So that's and going forward, we have the report now. It's a very good report. It's an endorsement of our vision and the statements we make. Because when we go into the philanthropic arena to raise funds, it's a very tough environment out there, and raising funds is not easy. But our business relies on our ability to raise funds. If we don't raise funds, we can't do grants. And now that we have a document that professionally articulates our point of difference, that will help us to raise funds in the market and therefore continue the work we're doing.
That's great, Pat. And you can see the social impact report that the group did. It's on the Community for Geelong website. It's an appendix to the report that they've done. But yeah, you can certainly see the level of work that they did for Geelong Connected Communities. I'm glad you've got a couple of board directors out of that process too, Pat. That is very exciting.
Yes.
Pat, one thing you did mention that I wanted to pick up because I think it's important is the way that the deliverables and the timelines that the group need to work to. And I love the way that you thought, how do we structure our year around this? Because I'll share my slide. Basically, the Leaders for Geelong have got 4 types of deliverables as part of this project. So first of all, they need to create a scope of work. And that scope of work is what are they going to do over the next 6 months? And they're quantifying that work as best as they possibly can, so that then you as a project champion and them as a group really understand the expectations up front and are really clear about what's going to happen over the next 6 months. Now, I had one group this year start with a very, very, very broad scope. And when you first read the scope, it sounded huge. When they got into the scoping process, they really had to narrow the scope. There was no way they could have achieved what that organisation wanted in the 6-month period. And so they used the scoping process to make sure that they were on the same page as the organisation. They allowed to have really good constructive conversations about what they were going to do. I also ask the groups to have really strong project management disciplines around how they manage this project. And there's an expectation that they are reporting on where they're up to every month. That's something that always comes through to me, because as I almost play like a governance role across the 5 or 6 projects that we have. So all their project status reports come to me. I know what they're doing when they're doing that, what their risks are, and where they need help. And so I'm across where these projects are, but mostly just in the background. I step aside, and the project team is the key relationship that you have. Like Pat and I, we didn't really need to chat at all. We've had a conversation probably in the very early days, and then it was just between Pat and the project team. So, you know, I'm typically not involved. You don't really see me at all, but I am supporting the participants behind the scene and doing a lot of work with them. And where teams are getting really challenged and they need help, I come in and support them and do team coaching with them to help them work through any challenges that they might have. They do a project report, and Pat and Jack, you've already mentioned that those reports from this year are available on the Community for Geelong website, and you can read any of those and get a good sense of the quality of the work and the type of work that they did. And then they also do a project presentation, which was last Tuesday at our breakfast. We had 180 people there, and each project team presented for 10 minutes on the projects that they did. And within that is a call to action. So, you know, they were very much, you know, well, what of these 180 people in the room, what's something that you could do next to support these organisations? So that's a process in its entirety. I will get into the nitty-gritty in just a sec about timelines. So our applications for projects are open at the moment, and they close on the 15th of November. I'll talk a little bit about the process for applying in just a minute. We'll confirm which organisations have projects into 2025 by the end of the year. Now, what you can see, I've got the 2025 dates. I would like to have the project champions involved in our opening retreat this next year, which is something different to what we did last year. But the opening retreat is where the participants get an opportunity to meet everybody. It's an opportunity to see what's happening in Geelong, where the challenges and opportunities are. And I would love for our project champions to be part of that. So you get a chance to meet the participants like really early on. You won't know who's in your project team yet, but you will get an opportunity to showcase the work that your organisation does via a community panel, which I would facilitate. And it's just really about what does leading in a community look like, what kind of work you do as an organisation, what does impact look like. I've got a range of questions, but I'd really like our project champions to get in front of the group early next year. The way that we assign participants to projects is that we run a project pitch webinar. Pat was involved in this last year. The project champions pitch their projects to the participants, and then the participants go away and they put in preferences for which projects they would like to do. Preference 1 through to 6. Not everyone puts in preferences, but I give them a chance to put in preferences. So once they've put their preferences in, I then will do a first cut and just be like, based on first preference, how do I get as many people into their first preference project as possible? That's my first layer. Then after that, I look at their skills, their background, experience, the work that they do. Then my next layer, I'm looking at what are their strengths and how do I make sure these are really well-balanced project teams and I don't have too many business analysts in a project that doesn't need that skill set, or because, or how do I make sure that someone who really wants to develop their leadership skills in a particular way, how do I make sure they get a project that's going to do that? So I'm doing a little bit of work behind the scenes just to make sure the teams are set up as well as they possibly can for you with a good mix of skills. You're either going to end up with 5 or 6 participants, depending on our numbers. Early April is really when they'll first be in touch with you to kick off the project, and you can see that their project scopes are due in sort of towards the end of May, and then the bulk of the project work's happening late May to late August. So it's sort of like a small window, but that's when they're doing all of the research analysis. They might be doing design work. They might be creating new products, new services. That's kind of where the bulk of the project work's happening. And then once they're into August, they're really starting then to look at reporting, and their final project reports are due in early October. So it's sort of looking at this timeline now, it lends itself to a certain type of project where, that like the example that Pat shared before, there was a very clear analysis and stakeholder engagement phase. Then there was a really clear, how do we wrap this up and kind of share the story of what this social impact is? And then there's the creation of the report and then the creation of the presentation. I'll just talk about the application process. So the QR code there is a link to the application form. So if you want to use that, Karen and I will send out this prezzo afterwards, and we'll send a very clear link to the Survey Monkey, which is where you can apply. Now, the application form kind of probably when you go into it initially might look a bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to make sure you don't need to have all the answers now. But you need to just have a bit of enough of an idea so that then we get a sense of what the project is. I also don't expect like 2,000 word essays on, to answer each of the questions, but I would love to get a bit of a sense of what your project is and answers to these questions. So the first question really is, what's the problem or opportunity this project aims to address? And you can, answer that in many different ways, but you'll see in the application form, I've got some prompts there, which is, who are some of the people that might be impacted by this issue? What are their needs and challenges, and how might addressing this issue benefit the community? The next one is, what's your vision for the proposed scope or what you want to happen as part of this project? And when you're sharing your answers, you might be able to share something like what work's already been done in this space, what activities or tasks do you think might be involved in this project? So is it stakeholder engagement? Is it a survey? Is it a review of your organisation, strategy? Or is it kind of coming along and having conversations at board meetings? Like, what is the work that you think this project team will do? And what do you think the key deliverables might be outside of the Leaders for Geelong project report? So back on Jackie's example earlier, the The main deliverable of that was the Leaders for Geelong project report, and all of their findings they built into that report, and that's what Give Where You Live got. In Pat's example, they did a Leaders for Geelong project report, and then they attached the social impact report as an appendix. So the social impact report was a separate document. They just attached it to as an appendix to their overall report, and then they created a summary brochure that they then shared at the project presentation breakfast. What resources are available to support the project team? So what support that you as a project champion might be able to provide? What access to information will they have? What access to stakeholders? Is there any funding that's available to support this project? And then the last one is just, do you foresee any challenges that might impact the project's ability to be completed in the available timeframe? So, to be honest, the first probably 2 questions are the most important. And then the second 2 are obviously important, but if you were to focus kind of your more detailed response on the first 2, that's fine. I don't have a word kind of count, but just enough so that someone who doesn't know about the work, which is me and Karen, and wants to, that we get a bit of a sense of what this project's about, and that we can get a sense that it's going to be the right type of project, and they're going to be able to do it in the time frame that they've got. If though you feel like you've got a piece of work but you're not sure what the scope could be, or it's a really big scope, you can always put it forward, and then we can fine tune it because the Leaders for Geelong group will always do that project scoping process, and you can continue to iterate the scope basically up until kind of, through April into next year. So the application, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have all the information. It just has to be enough for us to get a sense of, does this feel like a good project for our Leaders for Geelong participants in 2025? And then we can keep working on iterating the scope. What I did find last year, though, is when our project champions came to do the project pitch webinar, they pretty much used the scope that they submitted to us to share what that project was about. And then once the project pitch webinar happened and the Leaders to Geelong program participants went into scoping, that's when it started changing. So it doesn't have to be set in, but yeah, it just needs to be enough. So with that, I'm just going to take a little pause and just take any questions from you as a group. Pat's still here, obviously. So Pat, I'm sure, is happy to answer any questions about your experience. Looks like I've covered everything. Surely there's questions. So, Pat, I just wanted to ask you one more question that we didn't get to before. What advice would you give to this group of potential project champions?
Well, firstly, it's a very enjoyable and valuable experience. The people who are on our panel, and I'm sure it was the same with all, these are very capable people in terms of their expertise and their skill base, and that's why they've risen to the level of leadership and in their own businesses. So you're dealing with a pretty intelligent group, and in our case, we were lucky that we had quite a number of younger ones, and younger by comparison to my good self, and so they do bring another perspective. They do actually look at things a little bit different from what you're looking at them, and that's enormously valuable to get that perspective, and they do work hard. Sometimes we sort of met probably fortnightly, and I was always sort of very impressed when it came to the next meeting, the volume of work that had been done, and their willingness and eagerness to understand the organisation and to contribute. And I know that in our particular case, they were very passionate about our success by the finish of the project, and And, you know, I'm sure we'll take an ongoing interest in the work. So you do actually finish up with some advocates in the community for your business, and people who will be future leaders of Geelong. So they're great contacts to have. So, you know, go back to what I said at the very start. You'll get out of this what you put into it, and I'd encourage you to put as much into it as you can, because there's a lot to be gained. Now we've got this report now. I've been busy over the last few weeks sending this report out to our major funders, and hopefully it's going to ensure they keep reinvesting with us, and hopefully we'll be able to use that report to get new investors. So it could be quite valuable in terms of the expansion of the work that we can continue to do. So I couldn't encourage you more than to have a crack at this, because it's got some great value.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Speaking of Kool-Aid, the Leaders for Geelong program. Kool-Aid. Thank you, Pat. Now, I mean, I'm kind of keen to just get a sense, we've got a couple of minutes left, whether what you've heard today was sort of what you were expecting to hear, whether, you know, have you got a thought in mind about what might be a good project in your organisation? Start with you, Hannah.
Yeah, just a question out of interest. I know that there were a couple of longer term projects, so I wanted to ask, like, we have a couple probably like maybe ideas, different ideas. There was also a recommendation maybe we could do a little bit more work around workplace giving. So is it possible to also apply for an extension of what you've done this year, if we feel there is more that can be done? I don't know if we're going to do that, but just wanted to check.
No. The short answer is yes, it's possible, Hannah. We've just come off the back of doing 2 years with Lazarus Community Centre. One project was a really broad review, and it recommended an in-house nursing service be available at Lazarus, and so that was the focus of the second year. You know, it comes down, and that's fine. You know, to go into a third year, it's tricky, because sometimes it's actually, particularly for Lazarus, they've got quite a bit of work to do now, and so I probably wouldn't recommend going into a third year, because I'd like to see the recommendations implemented from the Leaders for Geelong program. But you've done the 1 year. There's still a little bit more work to do. So yes, it could be a second year, but I think it's just it's just also thinking about what might make a great project, and if it happens to be a continuation of one, or if it's something new, we're certainly open.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Emma or Claire, any questions or reflections?
Oh, your information was amazing, Lauren. That was so thorough. So no questions. Is kind of exciting. I think there's a few things that we're thinking about. So yeah,
that's great. So on that, Claire, if you want to have another chat to me or Karen, just about, here's our 2 or 3 ideas. We're not sure which direction to go. Like, what do you think? We're really open to that conversation. So if you want to do that, prior to thinking through an application, you can. Alternatively, use the questions we've got in the application form and just kind of play with those questions and retrofit your ideas into it, and go, through the answering of these questions, is this helping us to make a decision about what we might focus on?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much.
No worries. What about you, Melinda or Caitlin?
No questions here, but I loved that. Thank you so much.
No worries. All good, Caitlin. You can go back to Cam now.
And no questions from me either, Lauren. That was very informative, coming from a point of not really knowing a lot about the program. So I'm able to bring a whole lot of information back to our executive this afternoon, who wasn't able to make it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Melinda. What about you, Michelle?
No, I'm good, thank you.
You're all good, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yep, no worries. And Rachel?
Yeah, I'm the same. I think you've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to know. So yeah, thank you very much.
That's all good. So, I always get off a phone call. I'm like, oh, I should have asked that. You've got Karen and I will send through the slides from today. We'll have the recording. If you do want to share it with any of your colleagues, you're welcome to. Remember, the 15th of November is the due date for applications. We are happy to meet with you prior to that to help you with your application form. This is not like a, really formal, executive recruitment process. This is us. We're happy to help you with your application. So feel free just to reach out if you're, if you're reading through the questions and thinking, gosh, I'm not sure how to answer this. The more work you do now, the less you have to do early next year preparing for a project pitch webinar anyway. So we're here to help, and we'll make sure you've got our contact details when Karen sends a follow-up email. But yeah, I really appreciate you all being here and staying on the line. Thank you, Pat. Really appreciate your insights. I'm so excited about the projects from this year. They've all been really great. And Hannah, please pass on our thanks to Jackie as well for having her here today. That was also great to hear her experience. So I wish you all the best, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.